So during the period before the Congress in which the ADA was enacted, we spent hours and hours, day after day, going over issues that I really was learning a lot about for the first time. And so I would say, I had just excellent teachers in people like Pat Wright and Bob Silverstein, who had done this for a very long time. Any sort of sweeping legislation that is as comprehensive as the ADA, that affects so many segments of society, employers, owners of restaurants and movie theaters, public transportation, private transportation, just the number of constituencies that were affected was very important. The White House had designated Attorney General Thornburg as their chief negotiator in the last hours there to get to a final package. And Senator Kennedy, as chairman of the committee, and Senator Harkin and the AG had to work something out. And right up until we got that done, it was not at all clear that this was going to go. As one might expect, we gave a little on something, they gave a little on something, and I remember, one conference call that Senator Kennedy made from the cloakroom next to the Senate floor, where he had the list of 4 things that were left, and he had to pick up the phone and call Thornburg and say who was going to get which one and which way it was going to go. And he did that, and shortly thereafter heard back from Thornburg that that was okay. I think that so much work had been done on so many of these issues, and that the White House risked at that point being cast in the role of delaying and attempting to derail. And as we know, the disability community was more than willing to make that point if need be. That I think there was just enough outside pressure, and what we were asking for in the legislation at that point, these issues were important enough and we'd made the case strongly enough that I think they were ready to move on. Actually, when we were on the Senate floor, and that was, of course, when the bill is open to all of the various interests of various senators, and when we had some senators, worrying about pedophiles and various other extraneous issues, I thought that if we don't get this taken care of now, we've got to just, as one does in any legislation, but in this in particular, we've got to flush out what these guys want, we've got to give them an answer, we've got to move on. And frankly, at that point, I recall Bill Roper in particular as being very helpful. And one of the ways in which he was helpful was that because he was a doctor, he was able to deal with some of these esoteric ideas that some members had about what would and wouldn't be covered. And so it became very important at that point to come up with language to resolve issues very quickly and move on, because the longer the bill was on the Senate floor, the more likely that people were going to come up with reasons not to do it, come up with complaints, come up with amendments. And so it was important to focus on getting the bill done and disposing of these extraneous matters just as quickly as possible. We had the use of the Vice President's office in the Senate, and we basically went in there and drafted language, and then went and vetted it with the civil rights community, with the disability advocates, and then went back out and shopped it to whoever had a problem, and that's what we were doing. As long as we were able to keep resolving issues, we could move forward to final passage, and that was incredibly important. And if we would have gotten stumped by something, that would have kicked the bill over. And I think there were some interests that recognized that the ADA, although it was a very reasonable and is a very reasonable law, was indeed going to bring about some change. And there are some who are always fearful of change. So I think that there were some genuine opponents, and even though the ADA went through very quickly, it was not without its detractors, and it was not without its moments of real jeopardy. We saw more and more members actually coming to the floor with almost these, personal testimonies about relatives and friends. It was clear that people understood the importance of this.